worship right now. I was like, I feel for you.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, and all your life you just remain the same, watching your life just pass you by, married to fear you won't even try. No, you can't even picture you winning. No, whatever a man thinketh, so is he. Said you're way too far down now. You need to live in reality, child. Oh, I got news, yeah. You ain't gotta settle for nothing. You can get yourself up again. Oh, yeah. You ain't gotta settle for nothing. It ain't never too late, my friend. Still here, living life right now, then he's still got time to work it out. So just lay all your troubles down and walk again, and you can believe in you again. I got news, yeah. You ain't gotta settle for nothing. You can get yourself up again. You ain't gotta settle for nothing. You ain't never too late, my friend. So many things you're going through. Hard times, I want you to know. Don't give up yet. Don't give up, just hold on. Make it, he will make it. Oh, I got news, yeah. Oh, you ain't gotta settle for nothing. You can get yourself up again. Oh, yeah. You ain't got to settle for nothing. It's too late. I said, ooh, yeah. You ain't gotta settle for nothing. You can get yourself up again. Oh, yeah. You ain't gotta settle for nothing. It ain't never too late, my friend. Ooh, yeah. You ain't gotta settle. You ain't gotta settle.
Good morning, Unity of Music City, living up to its name, as per usual, with the music in Music City. That was the incomparable Miss Jackie Wilson, the incomparable Miss Nickie Conley, and the fantastic and incomparable. We got love on Chris Hatfield on the keyboard on that part. So, good morning. It's wonderful to see everybody via live stream. We are still doing the safe thing, I guess you would say, and coming to you all via live stream instead of being here in the house. But stay tuned to the website and to the email list, because perhaps sooner than later we'll all be able to be in the house again together. But one thing I was thinking while I was watching you all sing is there's nothing better than watching somebody in their tree. You know what I mean? When they're doing what they're here to do, what they were born to do, and you see the light shining from the inside out. And it can be anything, you know. It doesn't have to be music. It can be, you can watch somebody prepare the most beautiful meal and see the light in their face when you enjoy it and you thank them and tell them it was the best whatever that you ever had. Or that's the beautiful thing about life. When we start to give our gifts, and we get out of the way and we let that light shine. So with that, we're going to say it's a new day.
It's a new day.
And that's what we're going to do today. All right.
Yes. Can I get just a little bit more microphone? Thank you. Seems my life is finally coming together. Feels so good, don't think I've ever been better. It's clear to me my future will bring the peace I've been longing for is mine forevermore. It's a new day. Open my eyes and my path gets clearer. New day. Pushing ahead till my goal is nearer. New day. Spread my wings, I'm doing things my way. It's a new day. I don't know where I should begin. Couldn't tell my beginning from the end. For every door that closes, a window opens. And round the world and back again. It starts from within. It's a new day. I open my eyes and my path is clearer. New day. Pushing ahead till my goal is nearer. New day. Spread my wings, I'm doing things my way. It's a new day. I'm excited for the things ahead of me. I'm deciding I can make it on my own. Embrace the good and bad and let go of the past. I'm loving what's inside of me. Yeah. Said open my eyes and my path is clearer. Pushing ahead till my goal is nearer. Signs, baby. Spread my wings, I'm doing things my way. It's a new day. It's a new day. I open my eyes and the path is clearer. Said I'm pushing ahead until I get nearer. Oh, Lord, spread my wings, I'm doing things my way. It's a new day. It's a new day.
I feel it. I feel a
Me
new
too.
day. I feel a new day when you sing. I think any speaker would be blessed, as I am today, to get to sing, to get to speak, sing, yeah, to get to speak after you set it up like that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it is a new day. It is a new day. Every day that we wake up, no matter if where you are the sun is shining, if you can see the sun is there whether you can see it or not. No matter what, all the time. Just like the love that we are, no matter whether your thoughts are in alignment with the love that you are still love. I am still love. We are still love. That is changeless. That is formless. That is energy. That is divine. And that is our true nature. The love that we are. So I invite you at this point to just be comfortable where you are. If it feels natural for you, close your eyes. If it feels natural to you, leave them open. Together we breathe, because all life breathes together. And on this new day, we recognize a clean slate. No matter who you've been or where you've gone, the choice is yours in this moment to say what it will be now. No matter how you've held yourself in contempt, no matter who you haven't forgiven, no matter what has happened, the results of a past contribution that was negative cannot negate the power of a positive contribution in the now. We can always start again. And we are always love. We are always love. Here for love's purposes. Here with love's wisdom. Here as the vessels for a new day. A new day that is inspired by love, love's principles, love's process, love's peace, love's joy. No matter where we've been or who we've been or how we've been, in this moment there is love, and that love is you. That love is me. And that love is changeless. In the silence now we think together, that love is you. That love is me. That love is changeless. In the silence. A new day begins with a new thought. And what better thought to begin today? To carry into every day hereafter than the realization, the decision, the affirmation of yourself as love. As love, we are unlimited. As love, we are light. As love, we are guided with wisdom that only love can provide to order and right every wrong we see in our world today. One power, one presence. That is love. That is God the good. And because anything is so, as we allow it to be so, we say together that so it is. So, good morning. We are continuing and concluding today our 5-session series, our 5th in a 5-session series, contributing greatly to a world in need of great contributors. And if you've been alive in the last 3 months, you know that the world is ready for our best. The world is ready for our greatness. The world is ready for our new day. No question. No question. I'm going to try to advance this slide, but Chris,
sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So, in this series, contributing greatly to a world in need of great contributors, we speak about, and we've covered each of the 5 weeks, the 5 phases of soul. And so, during the course of the message today, I will reach back a time or two and bring up a couple of the PowerPoints that we've discussed, in my opinion, things that have meant power for me in my life. But to quickly overview the 5 phases of soul: opening, being available to divine inspiration, constructing, going through the building process, allowing your life to literally form in front of your eyes as the result of your commitment to vision, emerging, stepping into what you've built, what is new, the new day, inhabiting, filling that place with your full presence so that everything that is in that phase of your life, that stage of your game, you are there for. You are there for the lesson, you are there for the growth, you are there for everything that's intended for you to then transcend that place and take that with you for the new lessons. The new lessons. They never stop, right? It doesn't get easier, we get stronger. So today we're going to focus on transcending. I found it really ironic that when I went back and watched the very first these sessions on opening, there was something I said in the beginning meditation that we were, April 5th-ish, it was around that date, so we were just in the beginning of what we now look back as having been some of the most revolutionary days of our lives. This is certainly a time to consider priorities. May they be permanently rearranging according to what we find truly matters. I had no idea exactly what Spirit was saying when I heard those words and repeated that. May they be permanently rearranging according to what we find truly matters. So speaking of love, I think I remember Oprah Winfrey saying at some point, and if I had a dime for everything that I've learned from Oprah Winfrey that has made my life better, we would all have on better shoes. I would make sure of it. And much, much more. But anyway, what I remember her saying is all this work, when we call it spiritual work, everything that we do is the result of being born with an open heart, experiencing wounding, pain, the world, closing our hearts, learning that it can be opened again, learning what it takes, doing the work to align with the truth such that then we can live courageously with open hearts. So all we're really doing in this work, and God knows we use a lot of words and a lot of terms and a lot of concepts and a lot of books, but at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're learning how it happened that our hearts got closed, how we can reopen them, and how we can live courageously with an open heart so that we can be here for love, truly. Love, let my presence be a reminder to myself and others of our innocence instead of our guilt. To myself and others. How often are we a reminder to ourselves when we look in the mirror of our innocence? How often do we look in the mirror and see ourselves as our baby pictures? Because that's who we are still. We might look a little different. But when you speak from a spiritual standpoint, we are that baby. No matter what. Love, let my presence be a reminder to myself and others of our innocence instead of our guilt. So when we talk about transcending, we have to talk about fear. Because fear is the number one thing that stands in our way of the life we have and the life we visualize.
Yes.
Fear. Our fear of being seen, our fear of being heard, our fear of being known, and God forbid they find out I'm not perfect. Right? One of the ironies of healing, growing, and creating the life you truly desire is that in many ways it requires the opposite response of what kept you safe. What keeps us safe? Ego. Right? Playing small, hiding. No, let them play. I don't need to play. I don't need to play. Let them play. Let them sing. Listen to them sing. I don't need to sing. They sing. Right? That's how it happens. We stay safe. We won't allow vulnerability to happen. And if we won't allow ourselves to be vulnerable, Brene Brown, right? Brene Brown has, oh my God, the lives that message has changed. That we must be willing to step into the discomfort of vulnerability in order to step out into the light of our true nature and why we are here. We must first cross that vulnerability river. And we've got to get in it, and we've got to allow ourselves to get wet in it and be carried by it until we realize that vulnerability is not harmful. Vulnerability is not harmful. Vulnerability is wonderful. It's the only way anything new can happen, if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable. The other thing that we consider in transcendence is the truth that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Einstein, right? We have to assume a different perspective, a higher consciousness. That's when the same circumstance becomes a different reality. When we reframe it, when we see it differently, when we choose to have new thoughts about it. That's power. That's power. That's constructing. That's building a life that can serve and can feel full. Michael Beckwith talks about the principle of fulfillment instead of fulfillment. Fulfillment. We want that life. That's why we're here. That's about being vulnerable and being willing to let people receive your gifts. Fulfillment. So, with regard to transcending, what is it that we are most benefited by transcending in this life? The tendency to close. And yes, I mean our hearts. The tendency to close our hearts. The book Untethered Soul, which we spoke about in some earlier sessions, Michael Singer, there is freedom in realizing you are the one who's watching. You're the one who's watching. You're the observer. And if you are able to attain the position consciously of the observer, then the things that you see in your life and in yourself that scare you aren't as scary. The things that you see in yourself and in your life that are ugly, well, they're not me. They're not me. I'm watching it, I'm seeing it, but I'm the presence. I'm the love behind the film strip as it plays. As the movie of my life plays, I'm the presence that's observing these details. Now, as the presence, I have the opportunity to align with the truth and to affect the events in the movie. But I'm not solely the character in the movie. I'm the presence watching the movie. So when we can step out of ourselves, we must leave ourselves to improve ourselves. We must leave ourselves to improve ourselves. When we can step out of that ego identification, when I'm more than my height, when I'm more than my weight, when I'm more than my hair, when I'm more than my eyes, when I'm more than my heart, even. That's when I'm in my power. When I'm more than what I can see. Now, yes, we're going here again. Why are we going here again? Because right now we are alive at a time when true change can happen on this planet. Yes. We have not been at this place since the late 60s. Now, you say you weren't even alive. Doesn't matter. I've asked. I've done my research. And that's the advantage of things that have been written in history. I didn't have to live it. Others lived it and wrote about it so that I could read about it and improve upon it. Right. Build upon it. Yes. Build upon it, right? Okay, so Robin DiAngelo wrote this book called White Fragility. And it's so interesting that the image is supposed to say why it's so hard for people to talk about race, but the image that was shown to me first didn't have the talk about race part. And so what's really happening is, why is it so hard for white people to remain open? Remain open when the conversation is uncomfortable. Remain open when you're ashamed of what's happened in the past, when you are ashamed of the way that you, knowingly and unknowingly, as a white person, still perpetuate the system. Boom. So here we go. I acknowledge I have a racist worldview. I hold deep racist biases. I have developed racist patterns. I have investments in a system that has worked very well for me as a white man and helps me get over homophobia that I struggle with. That's my personal experience. As a white man in the world who is gay, I encounter homophobia on a regular basis. But the fact that I am white, there is a system that I can perpetuate, play into, and use to help elevate me above homophobia. I have investments in not seeing any of that for what it would mean for my identity and what it would require of me in action. Because the truth of the matter is that when we reconnect to our humanity and when we're really honest about what's going on in our world, we have no choice but to act. But white people we, I'm not saying you, I'm saying we have empathy barriers that are literally ingrained in us from the time of our birth that have enabled the exploitation of black people in our world since the beginning of this country, and it has nothing to do with fact, everything to do with a social construct called race that has nothing to do with anything other than a white man needing to feel superior, needing somebody else to be on his knees so he could feel tall.
Make it plain. Yeah.
That's what it is. That's not all it is, but that's some of what it is. So, when we talk about our white fragility, take a breath. I'm glad y'all sang today, because it gave me something. It gave me something. White fragility, the inability to tolerate racial stress, which is triggered when our positions, perspectives, or advantages are challenged. Now, white people are not socialized to be able to withstand racial stress. You know why? Because we developed the system. It works for us. We don't experience racial stress. And certainly not in the way that our black family does every day, living in a system that's built by white people for white people. So white fragility functions to block the challenge when it arises and to regain white racial equilibrium. These are not my words. These are Robin DiAngelo's words. And I do recommend the book White Fragility. Of course. White fragility is not weakness per se. It's a powerful means of everyday white racial control as it leverages historical and institutional power to maintain our positions as white people. Take a breath. Now, what does it look like? And this, let me say, when I read this, I see me in a lot of these things. Think about where you see you and where you see people that you know that are also in white skin. White fragility shows up as feelings such as being attacked. When a black person has the audacity to claim their stance and let a white person know about their experience of racism and their experience of harm, and white people have the audacity to feel attacked. Feelings, silenced. White people feel silenced. Since when are white people silenced in this country? Right? Shamed, accused, insulted, judged, angry, scared, outraged. Okay? So let me just paint a little picture for you. And yes, this is my opinion, and no, it's not objective, and I am good with that. When I watched the destruction, the events that happened in downtown following the first peaceful rally that we had in Nashville, I watched a live feed of the footage, and the people that were commenting about the atrocity of the damage to buildings, completely missing the whole reason why these buildings are being damaged. Why the flames are going up. Nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about the value of the building. That's white fragility. That's exactly what that is. I want to shift the focus. This is not about race. This is about doing something that's against the law, which is destruction of property. Okay, so when white fragility shows up, behaviors that are in alignment with white fragility include withdrawing, crying, right? We've all cried. We all will cry. The thing I have to say about crying as a white person is cry at home. Cry at home because black people don't need your tears, they need your action. Silence, arguing, denying, focusing on intention, seeking absolution, explaining. Like, let me explain why you misinterpreted what I said as being racist. As if being in white skin qualifies me to be able to determine how racism happens. Okay. Insistence on misunderstanding. No. You misunderstood me. I'm not a racist. Nope. You misunderstood. This is on you. We do all this. And you know we do. And so do the people that we work with. And so do the people that we live with. And that we grocery shop with. And we all do this. But the beauty of it is that we don't have to if we become conscious of it. And we talk about it enough. Oh, P.S. If when I started talking about white fragility today, you turned it off, well, you're not listening now. But if you were turned off, like he's going to talk about race again, that's white fragility. And yes, I'm going to talk about race again. Because we as white people have an opportunity to not fall asleep again.
Yeah.
Right now, new day. Okay. What triggers white fragility? We see ourselves as individuals who are not affected by socialization, meaning we don't see racism as a system. We see racism as acts perpetrated by people who are bad. That's not just what racism is. Yes, the KKK is racism, but that's not all racism is. So a lot of times white people get mixed up in this good-bad binary, right? To where bad people are racist and good people are not. And if you suggest that I've just perpetrated a racist act, then I must be a bad person. So my whole character is called into question. Not the truth. The truth is that if you're in white skin, you've been socialized by a racist system that was developed by white people, and implicit bias is inevitable. So even if slave owners who developed our Constitution, did you hear me? Even if slave owners who developed our Constitution and wrote the Declaration of Independence had the intentions of a better life for their enslaved people, there was bias in that. They were creating a system to advantage themselves first. Period. And if we see any board of directors in any organization in this city or any city that's all white and we don't call it out, that's complicit racism. Boom. It basically means that we as white people don't value the perspective of our black family if we don't make sure they're at the table. If we sit back while somebody at the office says, well, we don't have any black people that work here because they just won't apply. No. Talk to me about your recruitment efforts at HBCUs, 2 of which are right in your backyard, if you don't have any white people at your company. Talk to me about that. We aren't socialized to value the perspective of our black family. We're not. And we see ourselves as individuals who are not subject to socialization. Oh, I've overcome that. You know why? Because I've been going to Unity for 20 years. And in Unity, we talk about the value of all life. So when I speak of the human condition. Well, that's great in the heavenly realm. But in 3D daily life, we live in a society that is dominated by a systematic institution that is based on race. Okay? That's real. So the human perspective then becomes the white perspective in that 3D world, see? Because we're the ones that are having the majority experience. So that's how people are, is the way that white people see the world, but that's not true. And if we realize that, then we would ensure that there were more black people in our C-suites, that there were more black people in our boardrooms, that there were more black people in managerial positions, because we understand there are things we can't understand about the black experience in white skin. And it's important to integrate it into our world. Absolutely. So racism is a system, often associated with an act, but it's a system, not just an act. We've become entitled to our comfort. But white comfort cannot create equity. White comfort cannot create equity. White comfort has created the system we're in. So check this out. This is the difference between equality, which a lot of people talk about, okay? Equality. We want things to be equal. And so a lot of white people in this country are on this equality train because they don't want anybody to have anything else that they don't have. But they also don't want to fully acknowledge the reality that we ain't on the same playing field. We ain't on the same level. So in order for equity to happen, then we've got some folks in our family that need the opportunity to be caught up. Okay? This shows what equity is. Everybody has what they need to be in view of the game. Now think about this. In our country, we have such a huge division of wealth that there are people who are so high above this fence in a skybox that they could pay 50% of their annual income in taxes and never even be close to the fence. Now that's reality. But we also have some people in our society that can't see the game because they don't have what they need to get even up to the level of the fence to where they can see over it, right? That's, even if those two people have equality and they pay the same rate of taxes, that's not equity. And what we're learning is that we have the opportunity to build an equitable society. Not an equal society. There's nothing wrong with equal, it's just not exactly what we need now because it never started out equal. So you can't get back to equal if it's never been equal unless you introduce equity. Okay, we got that. Now, what does white fragility do? Okay, it maintains white solidarity, which is harmful. And every white person that's watching this knows that we have an unspoken code that if one of us commits a racist act in public, we don't call the other person out. That ends today. New day. Why does it end today? Yeah, why does it end today? It ends today because if we want equity, then we have to call them out. And we got to look at our white brother or white sister and say, I love you, man, but here's what you did, and here's why it's harmful, and we got to learn. And you just happen to be the one today, but none of us are above it. None of us are educated to the point that it doesn't apply to us. But today we got to look at this. And we got to get over our need to be coddled as white people so that we can look at what we do, so that we can learn from what we do, so that we can change it. But are we going to change it if we're invested in a system that benefits us as white people? That's the question. So we're here to talk about love because love would say that yes, we will do whatever it is we have to do to make it right. And that's why I'm in unity. I don't know about you all, but I'm in unity because I want to be in love as love for love. Yes. And this is exactly what love is not. What does white fragility do? It closes off self-reflection. It minimizes. It silences the discussion. People say, I don't see color. You know what they're really saying? They're really saying, I don't acknowledge that we live in a system that is ruled by a social construct known as race, and that my value in white skin is more than my counterpart's value in black skin or brown skin. That's what they're really saying. When they say I don't see color. That's not all they're saying, but they're definitely saying that. I don't acknowledge. I refuse to acknowledge. I don't see color. It goes back to what we were talking about. We see ourselves as individuals. I don't see color. Yeah, but you were socialized by a system that does. Deeply. So whether you see it or not, precious, it's all on you. And it's all on me. I'm just saying. Okay, makes white people victims. Protects limited worldview. Takes race off the table. Why does this have to be about race? I think we should focus more on similarities rather than differences. Well, if similarities is all that was required to get a job, maybe we would just talk about similarities. Right? There's a lot of harm that happens as the result of not acknowledging how we deal with differences. Okay, so rallies more resources to white people, obviously, because if we won't even acknowledge there's a problem, how are we going to rally resources to address the problem? You start talking about reparations in a room full of white people, you talk about a tense environment. I didn't do this. I'm not responsible. The hell you're not. Did you give up your job so a black person could have it? No. It's true. I'm not saying we should give up our jobs, but what I'm saying is that it's true that we do perpetuate the system just by being in it and being white. But there are things we can do to help not perpetuate it as much, okay? So obviously white fragility protects racism. Now, how does white fragility show up? Here are some phrases and some buzzwords that let you know, as a white person, I will be the judge of whether racism has occurred. I am entitled to my opinion here. My learning is finished. I know all this. How many people have been in a cultural humility training at their office, and there are inevitably people in the room that are like, I did this 3 years ago. I know this. We don't need to do this again. We just did this last year. Well, guess what? We still have racism. So we obviously still need to do this. Racism can only be intentional. Not intended racism cancels it out. So if y'all have never heard of a microaggression, Google it. I'm not going into it today. Google it. Most of the time, microaggressions are completely unintentional, and it's still an act of racism. White people who have experienced another form of oppression or have suffered cannot have racial privilege. Oh, really? So, how many people have heard of somebody say, well, I don't have white privilege. I grew up poor as a church mouse. How could I be privileged? You can be privileged because if you were in white skin, you had the assurance that wherever you went to apply for a job, more than likely, there would be a white person there. Hey. So even if you didn't have a medical degree as a white person, you still had a leg up simply because you were attempting to function in a system that was built by white people. So that's an example of how you can have privilege even if you grew up poor as a white person. If I'm a good person, I can't be racist. We've already covered that, right? Good, bad, binary, there. My unexamined perspective is equal to an informed one. I haven't even really looked at it, but I tell you what, I know for sure I'm colorblind. Okay. All right, well, talk to somebody about being colorblind. Google, I don't see color, right? And another thing is that a lot of these themes are probably familiar to a lot of us who are watching this, but not to the people that you work with. And not to the people that are in your world. And the whole point is, if we're going to be great contributors in a world that needs great contributions, we have to be equipped. We have to be educated so that we can point this stuff out and call it out. And we can call it out in love. It can be done. We don't have to make a spectacle of somebody. We don't have to shame somebody. You know, we can say, all white people are rowing the same boat. I was going to say something about that boat, but I won't. All white people are rowing the socialized through white supremacy boat. So it's actually, unfortunately, it's natural that we would commit racist acts. What's supernatural and extraordinary is taking the initiative to repair the harm. And we have that opportunity. We have the opportunity. If I have any proximity whatsoever to people of color, I can't be racist. Not true. Not true. You can be married, you can be a white person married to a person of color, still racist. You still grew up in the white system. And there are still opportunities for you to look at the dynamics that play out in the household unconsciously. That's all I'm going to say about that. How might we transcend white fragility? That's what we're here to do, is talk about transcending today, okay? So how can we do better? That's what we want to know, right? Oh, P.S., let me hit the pause button. White people do have a tendency to want to skip past the repair to the solution. Let's skip past the reparations and just make a law that says you can't look at names on resumes when people are hiring people. No, that's not enough. That's not the complete deal. You don't skip the repair. There has to be, and you all think about this, if somebody wrongs you and repeatedly wrongs you, let's put it in the context of a marriage, right? Your partner has a year where they just completely fall out of themselves and they commit several different acts of betrayal and harm, and they leave. But you've built a life with this person for 20 years and you have kids with them and you still love them even though they went crazy for a while. They come back and they say to you, I don't want to talk about anything that happened. I just want to start right now. I don't want to talk about your pain. I don't want to talk about your experience. I don't want to have to say I'm sorry. I want to start right now and go forward. Is that going to work, white people? Well, that's a tenth of a 100% of what we're looking at when we talk about not atoning, not officially acknowledging the historical harm, the current harm of racism in our country without making reparations. So, racism is complex. You don't have to understand it for it to be valid. You don't have to be able to see it. What you have to do is open your heart and transcend your ego's ability or your ego's tendency to say, well, you haven't proved that to me. I'm not paying anything till you prove it. That's not what love would do. Love would be open. Love would listen. And love would care. Right? Whites have blinders on. I have some blinders. Right? We've got to know that. We've got to know that we can't ever really have it. We'll be doing this work for the rest of our lives. It's oftentimes referred to as cultural humility, which is a commitment to the ongoing education and the ongoing inquisition into the experience of those who are marginalized and oppressed. Humility. I can't know, I don't know, but I do want to learn because I want to do my part to change it. Bias is implicit, right? We talked about that already. We have to be aware of our implicit biases. If you don't know what implicit bias means, Google that. Because we, as human beings, have several forms of implicit bias that happen and are ongoing in our life all the time. One of them is similarity bias. We are naturally drawn to something that is similar to us because we believe unconsciously that it is safer. And that which is different from us is dangerous. Now that's unconscious. Remember, if anybody ever just thought to themselves, I don't have that thought, it's not conscious. That's what I'm saying. It happens without our awareness most of the time until we learn about it. But similarity bias is just one form of bias. Nothing exempts me from the forces of racism. Nothing. No matter what I've experienced, if I've been socialized by a white world, right? A world that is dominated by white supremacy, then I'm not exempt. Not even if I lived in New York City for 30 years. Not even if I went to Costa Rica and prayed with the black babies. Not even, period, no, nothing exempts us as white people from racism. It takes courage to break white solidarity. Feedback on racism is difficult to give. How we receive the feedback is irrelevant. So, if you ever hear a white person say, you know, it's not what they said, they probably have validity in what they said, but it's the tone, it's how they said it. All right, well, you're shifting the focus then. You're making this about something it's not about. It's not about your experience of discomfort. It's not about your resentment of not being coddled. It's about the fact that you need to be informed. But here's what you can change. Finally, most importantly, racism hurts and kills people of color 24/7. And not only in this country, but especially in this country. And if you're open at all right now, that hurt to hear, to be reminded of. Interrupting harm is more important than my feelings, my ego, or my self-image. Interrupting harm. Transcending the tendency to close. Transcending the tendency to protect my feelings, my ego, or my self-image perpetuates harm. Perpetuates harm. So, in conclusion, what's very interesting about this process, the 5 phases of soul, You start with opening, and you end with transcending the tendency to close. It's a circle. We never stop this process. But as we hone in to what's going on in the process, we get better at the process. We live what's called a conscious experience. A lot of times people come to New Thought because they say, I want to live a more conscious life. Well, that just basically means that I want to be aware and in touch with how life happens naturally so that I can get in alignment with it. Opening, constructing, emerging, inhabiting, transcending, closing to open again. Your legacy is now. We are standing on the precipice of being able to create a new legacy for this country. Yeah. And it all depends on how committed we are to continuing to not close, to continuing to not forget and allow ourselves to get distracted. Because white folks, it's not a black fight. It's our fight. It's our mission. It's our work. And as a group, as a collective, we are not educated enough to do it well yet. However, there are a ton of resources, a ton. And so if we're committed to this work, if we're committed to this work being our legacy, if we're committed to contributing greatly to a world in need of great contributors, the information is here. The information is here. And we have the opportunity to be here for love. God bless you. All right. Higher ground. Higher ground.
That's where we got to go to.
Jackie Wilson, Nickie Conley, Chris Hatfield.
Take us home.
I'm moving on. Can nothing stop me now? I'm pressing on to higher ground. Each step I take is the new dawning of a brand new day for higher ground. Obstacles and situations, people, places, and things I must overcome. There's a battle to be won. With my mind set on higher things, these things have become my footstool. I'm determined to reach my goal. I need peace for my soul. I'm moving on. Can nothing stop me now? I'm pressing on to higher ground. Each step I take is the new dawning of a brand new day for higher ground. I'm pressing on the upward way. Brand new heights I'm gaining every day. No higher place that I really have found. Love and my feet on higher ground, forgetting what is already behind me. I said I'm moving forward on to what's ahead. I'm pressing, I'm moving on. Can nothing stop me now? I'm pressing on higher ground. Each step I take is a new dawning of a brand new day for higher ground. The race is not given to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, but it's to the one that endures. We gotta Can nothing stop me now? A brand new day for higher ground. Be strong and fight on, but by all means keep moving. I'm a witness for Jesus, for Jesus. When I was down and no one was there, He picked me up and He carried me. I'm a witness for Jesus, nobody but Jesus. When I was down and no one was there, He picked me up and He carried me. I'm moving on. We gotta move on. Can nothing stop me now? I'm pressing on to higher ground. Each step I take, that we take, is a new dawning of a brand new day for higher ground.
Jackie Wilson, Nickie Conley, Chris Hatfield. I'm going to ask Chris if you'll just continue to play a little bit there. We're going to say this affirmation together because I have been to church today, and it's been a beautiful experience. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, gentlemen. I am open to receiving floods of financial abundance with ease, so that I may be able to give back even more to the world around me. Yes. I am open to receiving floods. Y'all don't hate me for that. Of financial abundance with ease, so that I may be able to give back even more to the world around me. Yeah, I don't think anybody can watch y'all do that and not want to sing. At least I know I can. So thank you for that. You gave me so much life. Tithes, donations, and love offerings, unityofmusiccity.com/donate/. Thank you to Charlotte, Doug, Crystal, Drake, Benita, everybody who made this possible here today. It's all a team game, a team effort. Together, we're going to say the prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Have a beautiful week. Take it to higher ground. Here we go.
I'm moving on. Can nothing stop me now? I'm pressing on to higher ground. Each step I take is a new dawning of a brand new day for higher ground. Say we're moving on. Can nothing stop us now? We're pressing on to higher ground. Each step we take is a new dawning of a brand new day for higher ground.
Yeah.
Thank you.